This is pretty well known at this point, and I suspect it will get some kind of adjustment in the future, but at the moment, swarm launchers are crazy once you have a lot of them. And to demonstrate this, I will fight these 3 Remnant Ordos here using this joke fleet here. Classic Ziggy, flanked by 25 Buffalo Mk.II destroyers. The reason I refer to it as a joke fleet isn't that it's weak. On the contrary, I believe this may be one of the strongest fleet compositions in the entire game at the moment. It's just that in order to even assemble this fleet, you need to farm the threat, which means you already have an endgame fleet finished in order to do so. I must have killed close to 40 third strikes in order to cobble together the required fragment fabricators, threat processing units, and swarm launchers necessary to refit all of these Buffalo. That's what I mean when I say it's a joke fleet. It's basically the definition of win more. It's completely unnecessary. But I already farmed these stupid things, so I may as well put them to use. There actually won't be that much to cover here, since we effectively only have 2 ships to talk about, but I'll first point out something that you may have already noticed. I only have 2 S-mods on this, and that is because the leadership row is almost completely worthless to this fleet composition. In fact, I only took crew trainings just because it would benefit myself. The Buffalo don't actually care about it. The upside to this very purple-looking spread is that we get a lot of very relevant combat skills, which is important since we will be doing the bulk of the damage throughout this fight ourselves. And we deal that damage with this build here. There's lots of different ways to build the Ziggy, but I find that this setup is one of the best ways to serve what we want it to do, and that is to kill things fast. 1500 DPS on these auto-pulse lasers, 1200 DPS on these void blasters, and the heavy needlers, which honestly go without saying at this point. I've also got 4 of these antimatter SRM launchers up front. You technically don't really need these. You could honestly put whatever you want in those, but if you do have access to them, I highly recommend it, because these things greatly help our strategy to kill things fast. S-modded mags to help out our auto-pulse lasers and void blasters, and while I would appreciate the S-mod bonus of automated repair unit, I actually decided that the additional ordnance we free up by integrating ITU instead would help a lot for our flux stats. Normally, phase ships tend to prefer maxing capacitors over vents, but for the particular way we intend to use the Ziggy for this strategy, fast vents, plus the bonus we get from phase anchor, means we have way more uptime on our damage, which is important because we need to kill things fast. As for our Buffalo, there's not a lot to say here. The important part, obviously, is the fragment swarm, but don't forget that destroyers don't have enough fragments by default to support a swarm launcher's 50 fragment requirement. So that's why we also need threat processing units for the fragment coordinator. Those 2 things combined give us access to the swarm launcher on this very DP efficient ship. These things are insane. A lot of people tend to compare them to fighters, and while they do behave a lot like fighters, they're way, way more valuable. They're decently fast, they have serviceable bulk, they don't cost crew, they have infinite engagement range, and they have an arsenal that covers every damage type, and best of all, they don't cost combat readiness to use or replace. So that 120 seconds of peak performance time is going to go a long way if you can keep these things safe. Another important aspect that isn't really stated anywhere is that the AI doesn't treat the fragment swarms as fighters. They treat them, closer to actual enemy ships, which means that they respect them way more than fighters. Ships tend to ignore fighters all the time, but when you get one of these behind them, they act as if a frigate has flanked them, and it can be a serious distraction. If you've got a Paragon, and there's a Radiant staring you down, and 4 of these fragments get behind the Radiant, if they were fighters, the Radiant would just ignore them. But for the fragments, the Radiant will actually point its shield in the direction of the fragments and happily leave itself open to the Paragon and die. It's so stupid that I think out of all the things that could be nerfed about this, that's the part that I think will probably actually happen. I think they might get flagged as like fighters rather than ships in terms of how the AI responds to them. But basically, all that to say, that these things cause a lot of chaos in the enemy ranks, disrupting their formations, pulling ships out of position, and generally saturating the battlefield with flux. This means that we can use a traditionally easily surrounded ship like the Ziggy to just rip and tear completely unchallenged. Since we don't outfit these things for combat, we have a lot of our ordnance points to work with, so for 7 of these, I actually gave them nav relays to hit the cap on top speed, and for the rest of them, I gave them ECM packages to counteract the Remnant's electronic warfare. You may be wondering why I don't give these things converted hangars to double up or to double down on the sort of, absolute swarm mentality. But that's because the converted hangars reduce your combat readiness, and these things don't have a lot of that to spare. The fact that the swarm launchers don't cost combat readiness means that they can be supporting us the entire fight for as long as they still have swarms to launch, which, for the record, is not infinite, but with 30 swarms per launcher and 25 launchers on the field, that's 750 fragment swarms that they have to burn through. That sounds like a lot, and it is, but when I tested this against a 4-ordo fight, using afflictors rather than the Ziggy, we did actually run out of fragments. But for this fight, I suspect we have more than enough. You'll also notice that these don't have any S-mods, but that's because they don't need any. If you have the points to spare, I guess you could integrate some of these just to free up some points to spend on, like, missiles or flux stats, I guess. That would help them fend off any frigates that slip through the filter without needing to recall their fragment swarms, but that's already pretty rare. So that's the fleet we're working with. Let me show you what it does. So that's a healthy-sized fleet. Got some remnants, got some novas. 451%, yeah, that sounds about right. So we'll deploy the Ziggy first, because we want this to go up front. If you deploy it alongside all of the Buffalo, it'll get set in the back, and then you have to spend a long time phasing through them just to reach the battlefield. So the Ziggy comes out first, and then everything else afterwards. We can send some of these over here, some of these over here. Some of these will go in the center. Once these have been captured, I'll just recall everybody to center. Basically, I don't intend on holding these. I just need the extra deployment to get the last 4 Buffalo out. Another thing worth noting, the Buffalo Mk.II destroyers do technically count as civilian ships. So if you set this to a rally civilian craft rather than a rally task force thing, it'll make the Buffalo less likely to venture out to try and keep things away from it. They'll just stay on top of this and not move, which is what we want them to do. We don't want them to pick fights or anything or try to venture out to keep things away. We just want them to stay as far away from the enemy as possible and keep launching swarms. As this fight progresses, I'm going to try and be conservative about the way that I send my motes out, because I want to try and save them for bigger threats. And now the fragments are arriving. A nice thing about the Void Blasters that we have on the Ziggy is that because they're hit scan, it's very hard for frigates to avoid getting hit by them. You know, with a Needler or the Autopulse, they could strafe it, but with the Void Blasters, there's no chance. So the name of the game is Kill Fast. We see thing, we kill it fast. And then we point our ship at something else. I'll send my motes over there. And we kill it fast. And I think I'll just vent here. I don't care about that auto pulse laser. Once the rest of my motes come out, I'm going to send them here. Ripping and tearing. Kill things fast. Alright, now that everything has been sort of stabilized here, I'll deploy the rest of these. And now everybody go here. So you'll notice, if I just sort of look up here, the way that the fragments are preventing these things from forming a line to try and get to me. They cause so much distraction that, I mean, like, these ships could even just, like, die on their own without my intervention. But as I push upwards, I'm going to be killing things as I go to try and keep things as far away from my buffalo as possible. Another thing that the fragments do, which is nice, is they also give us vision. So I can see that it's mostly just fulgence and brilliance, and some scintillas and some frigates. The only real threat is the Nova back here, but he's quite far away. So in the meantime, I'm just going to let my motes float around and do whatever they want and contribute to the noise of the combat. So this is exactly what we need these fragments to be doing. They are probably the best support role in the entire game, on, like, when you mass them. Because they're just distributing flux throughout the entire battlefield, preventing anything from getting a foothold. I really wish I hadn't taken that ship explosion, but it's fine. Actually, I'll send the motes over here. That Nova looks like it's far away, but it can close the distance pretty fast. Ripping. Tearing. Now I will approach this Nova, now that it's been nice and disabled. That's an overload, and that's death. Once the Radiants come out, it might get a little sketchy, and by that I mean I might take some damage. But until then, these things are quite helpless. The only thing that's slowing us down right now is all of the debris that's accumulating on the battlefield right now. Overloaded by the fragments. Probably going to die to the fragments before I even shoot it. I appear to have stopped firing. What is the hotkey for hold fire again? X. I must have tapped X accidentally. No matter, ripping and tearing. Anything getting behind us? Some frigates. I didn't even touch that guy. Scintilla I'm not too worried about. Hello, Nova. You want to rush into me? That would be a good idea. Who needs frame rate anyway? Ripping and tearing. Kill fast. The most dead scintilla I've ever seen. Any more? I don't see any radiants coming out yet. Scary Reapers, doesn't matter. We fire so much damage down range that it just like deletes the Reapers as a side effect. Kill fast. I'm fairly certain that Brilliant, or that Glimmer, just got, like, killed by its teammate ramming into it. I had nothing to do with that event. Did not mean to target that fighter, but we got an overload regardless. What do you think you're doing? I think, yeah, they have a bunch of Radiants that they haven't fielded yet, so I'm going to stop using my antimatter SRM launchers until they decide to come out and play. Again, there's like no strategy, there's no using command points, there's just I told all of my Buffalo to stay back here, and then I'm just up here doing Ziggy things. The Fragment Swarm launchers are insane support. I'm approaching you with intent, Scintilla. There's the first Radiant. I could send the motes there now, but I don't think I need to. Thank you, Automated Repair. Very helpful. I'm gonna vent now before that Radiant closes in. Scintilla off to the side here. Again, all of this debris getting in the way. Just ripping and tearing too fast. I haven't had time to clean up after myself. The most dangerous Reaper I've ever seen. Okay, now you're getting moted. Although, with this... the most helpful Scintilla I've ever seen. Now you know what it's like. Do I give a shit about this Radiant? I think I need to kill this Brilliant first. Those ion cannons are a little annoying. I would like to vent. And then I can start ripping and tearing. So you can see it doesn't have its shields up at the moment, and I suspect it's going to leave them down because it wants to shield all of these fragments, but there's so many causing so much chaos, it's constantly deploying its shield and then removing its shield to deploy it somewhere else because there's so much around it. It thinks these are all like ship equivalents, so it's trying to protect against them all at once, and it just ate that entire salvo from me, like with absolutely no challenge at all. It does not even defend itself. Another Radiant up there. I'm afraid the Radiants have come too late to stop what's to come. I thought I could maybe arc the antimatter SRMs around it. Their tracking is too good. Okay, I thought he might get away. I need to get past all this. A line unit? An Apex class pointing its frontal shield away from the Ziggy. The strongest attack I've ever seen, actually. Ramming debris towards me. Are you... You're gonna be in range soon, so go ahead and get moded. Just gonna get this Scintilla, and then I'll turn my attention to the Radiant. Things dying on the back line that have nothing to do with me. They're decided to shield against me, surprisingly. It's not going to be enough to save it, I'm afraid. I am a little recklessly ignoring the Brilliant to my right, but it's fine. Now I point the guns at you, and now you get to die as well. Isn't that fun? Kill fast. Overloaded Scintilla just floating towards me incidentally. Two in a row, even. I'm gonna moat you. Actually, I'm going to moat the Radiant back here. It's not really a threat to me at the moment, but I have so many fragments that are in the area that it might just like get harassed by the fragments. I've seen these fragments kill Radiants that are on their own because they all just get behind the Radiant and they're too fast for the Radiant to like actually turn and point its weapons at. So given time, these fragments will just kill the Radiant on their own. And in fact, I think I might let them do that. Assuming there's nothing else that's that dude's just dead. Assuming there's nothing else that they're going to deploy that's a threat, I might just let the fragments like do their thing. And then I'll kill this Scintilla here. Like, what do you do? The least distressed Radiant I've ever seen. Scintilla on the back line just dying. Meanwhile, while this is all happening, Buffalo back here, full combat readiness. Very balanced. I'm just going to turn my ship away. No, no firing. The fragments get this one to themselves. You can have some moats, though. Enjoy that. Incredibly balanced. From across the map. Yep, joke fleet moment. That was a lot of fun. The fragments, that they're just really strong at the moment. It's just that to get a lot of them, you need to be in a position where it kind of doesn't matter anymore. Like, yeah, that was fun and silly and goofy, and I clowned on a 451% Remnant Ordo using Buffalo. But, like, to get these fragment, and, you know, these swarm launchers and these fragment, all these hull mods that require all those pieces, they're not guaranteed drops. It's going to take a long time to farm for all of that, and you need a fleet that can actually handle that. So that's why I describe this as more of like a win more fleet. But if you can assemble it, man, is it goofy. And as you saw there, it's just rip and tear the fleet. And I used a Ziggy for this, but like any ship that you want, like, man, I really want an onslaught, and I just want to send myself forth against the enemy and just spray devastators and storm needlers in every direction and just like live out my Doom fantasy. If you have 25 swarm launcher buffaloes behind it, you can do that. It's the like single most DP efficient support unit in the game. and I really love it. And I hope it doesn't get nerfed. It probably will, but even still, it's very inaccessible, like as of strategy to like build towards. So I'm not too worried about it, but it is a lot of fun, and I recommend you try it.